Hi people, it's Sarkovist here, and today I have Star Wars Battlefront, a game that I have been thoroughly enjoying for the past few weeks. However, this video is far overdue because I wanted to speak about it a lot sooner. However, unfortunately, as of upgrading to Windows 10, the Nvidia codec that I usually use seems to have broken, so I've had to go for the Bandicam alternative. So, better late than ever, and here is Star Wars Battlefront. Although, as I say, I have really enjoyed this game and I will get to the good points very soon, I think it's probably the best idea to first address the greatest issue with this game, and to be honest, it's not to do with the game itself, but the way EA have decided to market an aspect of it. And it's one that's been really focused on by a lot of the gaming media, in some ways unfairly because a lot of other games do it, and that is the Season Pass. Now, for me in the UK, it costs £40 to buy the Season Pass, which is almost like buying the game all over again. And in total, that would mean spending over £100 on Star Wars Battlefront to get the, quote, complete experience. Now, I do resent the idea of having to, well, first of all, that's a lot of money for a full game, but then again, if you count up how much DLC usually costs over the course of an entire game's life, it does tend to come to about that. But what I resent more is how secretive these expansion packs are. So, yes, I'm going to be spending £40, but on what? I mean, what constitutes an expansion pack, really? There are 4 expansion packs, but what is that going to entail? Is that just going to be new skins for a Stormtrooper? No one wants to spend £40 on that. Now, if it was like 2 new maps based on The Force Awakens and you get to play as, I don't know, Kylo Ren as a hero, yes, I'll pay for it, but they haven't promised that. They're asking you to take a leap of faith. And that is why I believe this is getting so much stick, because it's not just the idea of paying ahead of time, it's paying ahead of time for something you have no idea about. There are no trailers, there's nothing to go on about these expansions, we can merely speculate. And for that reason, I do resent EA creating this Season Pass idea. Now, I wish the Season Pass idea would go away for all games. I think it's such a silly idea, and it makes no sense to present it, and I just wish it would go away. However, this has not let me get annoyed at the actual core game of Battlefront, because it is so brilliant, and I'll go into that now. So now that I've got that nasty business out of the way, time to focus on why Star Wars Battlefront is such a brilliant game at its core. And you might find me being a bit contrarian in this review, because a lot of the points I've heard I just flat out disagree with, and I'll make as many points to counter why I believe that. And the main one is the simplicity of the game. A lot of people call this a very basic game with very little depth, and I would have to just outright say no to that. Because there are so many different ways you can potentially play this game. You can play it in third person as a standard shooter, you can play it in first person as a standard shooter, you can play it as a hero, where each hero has completely different mechanics to the other. There are some slight parallels, but on the whole they are quite different in the way they've played. You can play it in vehicles, you can play it in starfighters, you can play it in speeders, you can just try and play with the different power-ups, you can play with the different card combinations, and card combinations, I think, are a substitute for standard classes. So a lot of people have said it's annoying that there aren't classes in this game. Well, no, there aren't classes, but by using cards, you can create your own custom class. And so for all this variety, I would say this game is far from simplistic. And getting down to the shooting itself, on the PC version of the game, there is no kind of aim assist, which makes, when you just fire your blaster, quite nuanced, because you have to factor in a lot of things. First of all, because blaster fire doesn't instantly hit its target, there is a travel time. You have to know when to lead your target. That's in itself a complexity to the gameplay. Furthermore, you've got overheating, and when you overheat your gun, you can time it in such a way that you instantly refresh it. If you want to avoid overheating entirely, you can feather the trigger, try and do collective shots rather than just unleashing everything. Although there aren't lots of different types of blasters, all the blasters are fairly different from each other, so whereas one is quite balanced, another might be focused on range, another is focused on close quarters, another one just unloads as many shots as it can in a second. So there aren't lots of blasters, but there is variety amongst the ones there are. And also, I've heard some people say there is no recoil, there is no spread. That's just a lie. There is recoil, there is spread. I don't know where people have got that from. Maybe on some of the console versions where there is aim assist, it may appear that there is no recoil, but I assure you, without aim assist, there is very obviously. If you just hold down the trigger, there will be a much wider spread of blaster fire. And I do tend to find myself being far more accurate with my standard Rebel rifle when I fire in single shots as opposed to just unleashing it. If what people were saying was true, then I could just take people out from a distance without having to fire in bursts. So I really enjoy the shooting. I also really enjoy the way that the large-scale battles are handled in this game, because it's 20v20 and they do a great job of concentrating the battles. So my experience with Battlefield was quite negative in some ways, in that I'd often find myself running around the map for ages only to be sniped or shot at from a direction I was not even looking in. Now, while that can happen in this game, because again, these are large maps, they're big battles, it seems to happen a lot less because the battles are far more focused to certain areas of the map. Sure, if you want to, you can run off, you can explore the map, but the fighting tends to be focused to the objective areas. You've also got some more traditional modes with smaller groups, but they're far from the best this game has to offer. This game is best when it is truly capturing the essence of Star Wars in those epic battles from the films. I mean, the Hoth battle, where it's Echo Base versus the Imperials in the AT-ATs, I'm not going to say, it's not a faithful one-to-one recreation, but they set it up in such a way that it's like playing with those old Lego sets. It's just a joy to be a part of the battle, even if you're not doing especially well, which is the case of me quite a lot because I'm terrible at aiming in this game. But just being on Hoth, just being in the trenches, or being in an AT-AT, or being in a TIE fighter, flying over above, just doing that is in itself fun. If you're good at the game, that's a bonus. If you do well in a match, that's very nice as well. But just being in this game, being a part of these battles is so much fun. And it's a game that lends itself very well to replayability. I mean, if it didn't lend itself well to replayability, it wouldn't be very good at all because it's a multiplayer-focused game. And there's a point which I can say against this game, actually. When you make a game that is multiplayer focused, you can create this scenario. So, imagine you're on a team that utterly destroys your opponents. You do everything right, every tactical maneuver is spot on. You get to play as a hero, you go around owning everyone, you come out cheering and say, this is the funnest game I've ever played. What if you're the other team that just got utterly destroyed? Now, yes, the point I made about it being Star Wars still stands. You can still enjoy it for that reason, but you still got killed quite a lot. You didn't get to do much, and that will detract from the experience. So whereas one person will come out and say, it's a super fun game, there are loads of different tactical options, the shooting it is fantastic, it's a really satisfying game. Another person is going to say, well, it does the Star Wars side of it, it does the graphics side of it, and it really looks like Star Wars really well. Oh, it's filled with campers and cheaters, and based on the fact that you just didn't do very well. And so effectively, by creating a multiplayer-focused experience, you can potentially make, like 33% of the player base just get destroyed, maybe even 50% at the absolute worst, and then their opinion of the game will naturally be worse. Whereas if you have a solid campaign, then everyone can potentially have the same experience, enjoy it to the same extent, play it just as well, and not have it where they are destroyed by other players who, therefore, at the expense of the losers, had a great experience. It's not a criticism, that's just how multiplayer is, but it is the constant risk of paying so much for a multiplayer game. Because this is admittedly quite expensive, and I certainly think they could have done with at least 7 large maps. At the moment they only have 5, and they could have done with a few more, but I don't think I've been ripped off, I just wish I had a bit more. But I don't think it's such a bad thing for a game to leave you wanting more. It's much worse when you start playing it and it has loads of content, but you think, oh, this isn't actually that fun. So that is considerably worse. Also, the final point I want to make about this game is how well this game is optimized for the PlayStation 4 and the PC. I don't know about the Xbox One, I haven't played it, but on the PlayStation 4 this game is more or less a constant 60, and it looks really nice, and on the PC, well, I'm just going to say this is the best optimized game this year. It's It runs so well. I have a friend who has quite an old rickety PC. He did recently get a GTX 770 to be fair, but the other components are a bit low end. But it runs like a dream on that computer, and on my one, I just think it's fantastic. And if anything else, it's actually ruined other games for me. I played Just Cause 3 fairly recently, and that game has good graphics. But compared to this, everything sucks. The graphics in this game are amazing, and it runs so well. And the thing is, we like to complain, and rightly so, when a developer fails to optimize a game, when it starts to run terribly, when the graphics aren't very good. But I think when a developer actually takes the time to optimize a game well, we just take it for granted. We say, well, that's how it should be. Well, you know what? It does take effort to program a game efficiently. And I just say this to you, DICE. Thank you so much for making the PC version of the game run this well. I really do appreciate it, and it just adds to the overall experience. If you have a game that doesn't run well, it can really detract from everything, but the fact it runs well is just really the icing on the cake of an experience that I would enjoy anyway. So, as you can probably tell, my impressions of this game are very positive, and in terms of recommendations, I know that a lot of people haven't enjoyed this game, and so it's difficult to give out a blanket description saying get the game, because obviously a lot of people don't like it. But I can say this: if you're a massive Star Wars fan, you will probably enjoy this game just for how well it captures the essence of the universe. If you're a shooter fan, it's harder to recommend it, because you may think that although I have argued the game is not simplistic, you might think it's not as complex as some other shooters, which is a fair criticism. But I think if you're a Battlefield fan, then Battlefront will probably appeal to you. If you liked the previous Battlefront games, I think you'll miss certain things that haven't been brought over. You don't have space battles in the same way. They're not literally set in outer space. There aren't as many maps, but the fact that the maps that are here are done so well might make up for that. That's certainly the case with me. So, as always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.